Hello and welcome to an exclusive hour-long programme with me, Alex Belfield, talking to a man who is not only a genius of broadcasting, but he's also a sex symbol.
You sure you've got the right guy here? Yeah.
Well, I think so, because the ladies seem to love you, and you're not going to believe this, but a peculiar thing happened to me a week ago last Tuesday.
You were mistaken for me.
No, I saw a programme you weren't presenting.
Well, you see, sometimes, people say that to me, you say you're on an awful lot, but I take that as a huge compliment. I spent my life talking to people who want to get on the television, or other presenters who are not happy with the amount of work they do. And I'm always amazed that people say to me, you do an awful lot. I mean, this is my job, this is what I do. You don't go to the newsagents and say to the guy working behind the counter, do you know what? You were in here 6 times last week. And you've also got to bear in mind that different people hear and listen to different things. I mean, however popular this programme is, Alex, there'll be lots of people say, what, you were on the radio with Alex Belfield? Never heard it, don't know anything about it. And, I work for Sky News in the morning. That's a specialised audience. There's lots of people. The amount of people that come up to me and say, what are you doing now since you're not on TV, since GMTV ended? So different people have their different audiences, and I think people in the industry tend to see you a lot, but other people are quite selective in where they hear you and where they see you. And again, I do radio on a Saturday morning with 5 Live, which is a program. You do certain things for different reasons. For instance, I am a broadcasting enthusiast. I mean, in my autobiography, I talk about why I'm in TV. I really loved it. I just loved the whole art, the whole crafting of programs, the idea of meeting sporting heroes and things. And there's certain programs that you become involved in and you say, this is a real privilege to do. And you follow in the footsteps of people who were your icons in broadcast, people like Desmond Lynam or Frank Both or David Coleman, people like that. And there I am talking to top sports people about sport of the present, sport of the past, and talking to entertainment people about sport. Now, lots of other people don't know that program exists, so I'm not really doing it for the audience, and you're doing it for yourself really, and living out the ambitions that I would have had as an 11-year-old when I said I want to be a broadcasting journalist.
I think what you've cleverly manufactured is that you're in a position now where you're kind of Terry Wogan. You're a guaranteed act that's going to work. Whether you do a comedy programme or whether you do the news, you do it very well. And I think that's probably why you get a lot of work, isn't it?
No, I just think I'm cheaper than everybody else. That's what I think that's why it is. And it is true. Some people are paid absolutely indecent, ridiculous amounts of money for broadcasting. You and me, I have to say, will not be amongst them. But people do. I mean, I do very, very well, but I would do better if I was a half-decent barrister probably, and there is this illusion that goes with being a personality or being on telly or radio, that you are in some way guaranteed to be a millionaire. And I feel quite sorry for a lot of the youngsters in soaps. They put themselves about in a lot of magazines and they're expected to live up to this lifestyle, but they're actually paid relatively average salaries. Maybe these salaries are double the national average, but believe me, that won't make them a millionaire. That won't guarantee them 2 sports cars and an apartment in Spain. And there is a hype to live up to. I've always been very sensible about my approach. It's all work. It beats working for a living, because most people I know have real jobs. My father was a carpet fitter. I have a brother who's a postman, another painter and decorator, another one who's a carpet fitter. And what I do compared to them isn't like work. I remember once my lad who's 13, Niall, was at school, and the teacher said to him, What's your daddy's job? She was going around the class, and he said, she said, well, it's an easy question now. What is your father's job? And he said, he talks to people. And when you think of it, that's all. That is what I have to do. I have got to talk to people. So I laugh when people say to me, it's very hard what you do. It's very difficult. I suppose it's like saying to Wayne Rooney, it's very hard what you do. It's not hard to him, but it might be to other people who don't have that ability.
Last week, for example, you were doing the breakfast show on Sky News, which is an unenviable task, just getting up to do the news. I think that's just awful. And then you went straight across to do This Morning. Do you have any time to yourself whatsoever?
I have a lot of time to myself. I have very good backup around me. I've got 2 secretaries and I have a very organised life. So, I don't have to. There are lots of days and lots of afternoons that I don't have to work. last week was unusual because my other half, Ruth Langsford, presents this morning on a Friday, and although it was a mad dash from Sky News HQ in Isleworth, which is near Heathrow in London, down into the Waterloo region of London to present this morning for 10:30, actually you're up to speed. You've done your homework the night before. The more you do, the easier it becomes to you. And the one day I had difficulty doing this morning was Friday, which was the day that I wasn't on Sky News. So actually, although it is awful, and there's no other way of putting it, but getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it never gets easier, it never gets better, but you are actually up to speed and you hit the ground running. Yes, you're pretty exhausted come 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I've always had that tremendous guilt about going to bed, because the rest of the world doesn't stop because you want to have a lie down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. People still want to talk to you, and people are very dismissive, and they do. Even people in my own family, if they catch you in bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, is he sleeping again? Was that what he's sleeping? I said, pardon me, I've been up from 4 o'clock, but yes, I'm having a bit of a sleep. But honestly, at the end of the day, my work is no different than anybody else's. It just has higher profile. Everybody else clocks in 5 days a week. Everybody else does extra hours, and it's just what I do, but of course it is very visible.
All right, in this hour we're going to talk about your life and career. I got to know you better when I read your autobiography this summer, which I thought was fascinating and also well written. It describes a man who really just went out to do what he loves and made it. There aren't many people get that joy, are they, to actually do what they love to do?
Yeah, well, at least what I'm not doing is pretending or finding myself in a situation that I don't know how to cope with, because I think a lot of people, when you see them for X Factor or Big Brother, it's just, I want on the telly. I get a lot of letters and a lot of emails during the week, and I'm always very good about giving people advice about the industry, because if you can recognise somebody who has got that love for broadcasting that you have, of course you want to help them. Who you don't want to help, who you haven't got time for, are the people who just want to be famous. And so often people will write to me and they'll say, and I'll make appointments with them and I'll have words with them, and I'll say, "No, what do you want to do?" And they look at you quite blankly and they go, "Well, I want to get into TV." And you say, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a floor manager? Do you want to be a researcher? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a picture editor, camera person, sound engineer? What do you, a makeup artist? And they go, yeah. And you say, what? And they say, any of those. And it's as if each one of those does not require any particular skill. So what they're saying is, look, just get me into TV. And if they were truthful, what they'd say is, I want on TV. And I think it's lucky for people like me that so many people just want to get on TV, because actually they don't acquire or research the skills that are needed to stay on TV. If it is difficult getting on, and it is difficult, it is harder staying there. And I think if people say to me, what are you most proud of in what you've done in your broadcasting career, the thing I'm most proud of to myself is having survived for 26 years.
We're also going to talk about your greatest skill, and I'll tell you what I think your greatest skill is, which is when it's all falling around you, you keep your cool. Because on TV there's nothing worse than those moments, particularly in news, when the tape doesn't start and the presenter panics. How did you manage to develop this skill to stay calm?
I watched the best and I forgot the rest. My TV training was at Ulster Television. I say training, there's no such thing as training. You don't get training. If you want to be a good golfer, a good snooker player, a good football player, you watch the best there are out there. You watch them and you copy them. I watched the best broadcasters there were, and I watched and I presented with people at Ulster Television, like the sports guru Jackie Fullerton, who was there, who was our Dickie Davis of Northern Ireland, or Gloria Hunniford. Gloria Hunniford presented the hour-long tea time programme, and so many of Gloria's qualities that I would watch. You see the rest and the best, and you forget the rest. And also, I always remember, you are not paid for when it goes right. That's the easy bit. You're paid for when it goes wrong. It's the same whether you're an aircraft pilot or a surgeon or anybody, a waitress in a restaurant. It's when the rush is on that you have to cope. I mean, when it's slack, that's not a it's not a problem. And therefore, that's when you watch. I often watch people on television who present particularly regional news programs, and they're very pleased to be there. They look in and they're very smug, and they're little men with little ties all tightly up round their neck, and they're looking, hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. And they're very pleased to be there. And you watch the smile dissipate when something goes wrong, which they actually haven't bargained on. They're worried about exactly what they're going to wear, what their hair looks like, how prim and proper they look, if they're smelling correctly. But when it goes wrong, that sorts the wood out from the chaff.
You really were just a normal child in a normal house with an absolutely normal family life, but of course your surroundings were everything but normal, weren't they?
I grew up during the height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. There was absolutely nothing about that, and therefore that impinged and that affected on the person that you are. And how it really affected me was that, yes, we lived in fear, like lots of people did, but yes, I wanted to explain. I wanted question answered. Why is this going on in my country? This looks like a part of the United Kingdom. Why isn't this the same as Yorkshire or Lancashire or Essex? Why isn't, why are people being killed going to and from work? And I wanted to explain that message in the way we were coming across, and I wanted to understand it. And I also watched all the news crews, both from Britain and abroad, on the streets. And I saw what they did, and I watched the reports come to fruition on television. And these are the days before video, these are the days before mobile phones. And you learned your craft, you watched these people, and it was a vocation from that point of view. That is exactly what I wanted to do. So from that point of view, you tried to have a normal life, but it was anything but a normal life.
Did you resent the fact that you were aware that people were being killed around you?
Well, that fear never leaves you when you wait at night and, mum has the dinner ready and we're waiting for my dad to come home, and he's half an hour late, then an hour late, and it's dark, and he's 2 hours late, and there's news reports that an unidentified body has been found in a certain part of Belfast. It's thought this man was in a van, he was working, and you sit in real fear. Your mother with a handkerchief to your eyes, wiping away tears, worried. People are on nerve tablets. They don't know what's happening from one moment to the next. And then Dad comes sauntering through the door at 8:15, and Mum says, "Where were you?" And he said, "Well, I got another wee job to do, and I just decided instead of doing it tomorrow, I would just finish it off tonight." And so I come in, and then she throws his dinner at him, basically, because, out of relief, I suppose, more than anything else. But you had to live with that, sectarian assassinations and people being assassinated for no particular reason, but that they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Very scary thing to live with. Very scary thing as a child at school to be hijacked on a bus on the way to school as a matter of normality, to walk through burning barricades to come to and from school, to be chased when you got off your bus, not being able to wear your school badge or your school tie. And this happened for everybody, not just me. It happened for everybody. They were horrible conditions to grow up with. And for me, refuge from reality came through television, actually. I would sit a lot in front of TV and escape with various programs, and became fascinated with the moon landings, became fascinated with programs like Blue Peter, which taught history and all sorts of things, and fascinated with programs like Newsround, and getting your news in easily digestible forms like that. But, people say today television is bad for youngsters. Not all television is bad. It's how you use it and what you do with it. I mean, I'm convinced to this day I passed my O-level geography and A-level geography by watching programs like Horizon and knowing about tectonic plates and how volcanoes erupted and all that sort of thing.
When you'd sit at home watching the 6 o'clock news and the top story would be something that had happened just maybe a few hundred yards from your front door, did you think that every child had got that upbringing and that it was just normal to see, hear and experience things like that?
It became normal that you boarded up your house at night. It became normal that you picked up bullets in the street. It became normal that you would smell burning rubber in the air, and that you knew you were going to be abused because of your religion, again, no matter what side of the religious fence that you were on. So yes, these things became normal. It becomes normal in Northern Ireland that you are introduced to someone and you immediately know by the colour of their hair or by their name what religion that they are or by what school they went to. And people have all sorts of clever ways of finding out your religion if you're not sure. But it always amazes me that in England, people are fascinated by the fact that it is a second nature to suss out someone's religion when you're from Northern Ireland, whereas people in England wouldn't particularly think about that. So yes, the abnormal does become the norm.
Does it still matter to you what religion someone is?
It matters because I respect people's religion, I respect people's tradition. I have seen in Northern Ireland, though, how integrated education takes those that don't, a lot of people who don't know better, and it puts them together, and it puts a lot of people who want to make a statement and want to hold hands with people from differing traditions to go forward. Integrated education in Northern Ireland has been a fantastic thing, and so it matters to me to make it not matter to other people, if you can understand what I'm saying by that. And it has mattered to me that in Northern Ireland people have been so good and they haven't worried about my religion, and they've basically said, Eamonn, you represent Northern Ireland, that is the important thing. You represent Catholics and you represent Protestants, you represent Loyalists and you represent Republicans, you represent us all. And that is the fantastic thing, and I'm very aware of the responsibility of representing the country which I'm from, Northern Ireland, and the city in which I was born, Belfast. And you know, there are a lot of things in life which I'm not particularly sure about, but one of the things I am really, really absolutely dead certain about is that first and foremost, whether I am a broadcaster, whether I'm a news presenter or an entertainment presenter, or whether I, what type of person I am, that I am a Belfast boy first and foremost, born and bred.
This might seem like a silly question, but is it all resolved now? Is it all over? As a guy who still has family back there, how is it now?
For people like my children, it is. They are teenagers, and they are Catholics who there's a massive intake that is non-Protestant. They don't worry about religion. They're not aware of it. They seem quite mystified when you talk about don't go into that area, don't be there late at night, or don't take a bus there. So that's quite nice, but there will always be fanatics, there will always be troublemakers, there will always be variations that have developed because of religious animosities or political animosities. So it will take a while for that to be outgrown. One of the interesting things, the big debate, of course, throughout the UK is about immigration. And in Northern Ireland, of course, during the Troubles, no one from outside Northern Ireland would have wanted to live there. And oddly enough, when taking quotas and things of boat people from the Far East, the government in Britain put a lot of them in Northern Ireland because, there may have been objections to putting them elsewhere. And we have now got a very healthy, thriving, interracial community as well. And it's funny how this new generation is coming through, and there are so many people of different coloured skins and different accents. And, maybe this is the way that it dilutes the inbred hatreds, because it doesn't matter to them, what if you're an Orangeman, if you're a Green Man, or what your background is. It becomes one big melting pot now. It's very, very interesting what is going on.
Do you think, seeing what you've seen and knowing what you know, it is good that you were brought up in that because it's made you the man you are? Or do you think you would rather have just been brought up in Swindon and had a normal upbringing?
When I was a teenager, I definitely would have rather been brought up in Swindon. And I really do. Looking back, I was definitely deprived of my teenage years and doing the things that most teenagers did, going to youth clubs, getting out and about to date girls and things. In the mid to late 70s, it was just a no-no where we lived and what was going on. We didn't have street lights, we didn't have public transport, we didn't have cinemas to go to, because not only was an economic downturn, there was also just a situation that terrorists would bomb and burn these things. So yes, from the point of view of being a teenager, yes, I would have rather been in Swindon. For the man who I am today, no. I all these things have made me who I am. I've lived through it, I've told the tale, and there are more dimensions to you because of what you lived through.
It's Alex Belfield with you for an exclusive hour-long programme, talking to one of my favourite people, Eamonn Holmes, about his life and career on your favourite local radio station. I want to talk to you about how you entered into journalism and then subsequently show business, because you weren't really in a showbiz family, were you?
Well, I mean, all I wanted to be was Eamonn Holmes, the TV reporter. But by complete accident, you end up doing other things. Because the very thing that you become well known for being well known, you become well known for being on the television, and then that leads to other things happening. But then, of course, as a television presenter, you've got to be aware of how you survive, because I could read you out 100 names who you would know as TV presenters, and you would say to me, yeah, where are they now? Whatever happened to him? What happened to her? What did she do? What did she go on to do? And that's the way it is. And the way I looked at it was, this is my job. This is what I want to do. I don't have a certificate on the wall that says you are now qualified as a television presenter. So my job depends on the whim of people in management, or if the public like you or not. And it depends on how adaptable you are at things. So I always wanted to be the new Des Lynam and host Grandstand and Match of the Day and do all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, really, as an anchor, that's that would be the ultimate ambition for me, and that's what I really want to do. But then it was obvious that TV companies didn't really want that. It went in a different direction. There were a lot of sports jocks, former sports stars in particular, who became presenters and sports babes. And whilst this is all very good and this is the way people want it, in the 70s and the 80s, that wasn't the plan. So I realised I had to do different things, and I diversed into quiz shows. And people wouldn't give me quiz shows because they said, you don't do quiz shows, you won. So I went back to Ulster Television and I did a quiz show called All Mixed Up, and against the advice of my agent, and it became the top quiz show in Northern Ireland. And then as a result of that, the people who did the computer graphics for that were working on a quiz show in Manchester, and they said that the BBC were looking for a host for that, and they said, what about Eamonn Holmes? And they said, but he doesn't do quiz shows. And they said, he does. We've just worked with him. And they showed the BBC a tape, and the BBC gave me a quiz show in Manchester called Pass the Buck. And then a slot became available for the Wednesday Night Lottery, a 15-minute programme called The Third Degree, which was a prelim to a Saturday Night Lottery programme from Manchester. And I did that as well. And I did this on top of my day job, which was presenting GMTV. But as a result of doing the Wednesday Night Lottery, I then got the Saturday Night Lottery, and as a result of doing the Saturday Night Lottery, which I thought was the pinnacle, American TV, Fox Television in America, poached me to do a show from Los Angeles across America called The Rich List. So when I eventually, in the summer of 2006, went across to Los Angeles in a stretched limo, going down Rodeo Drive to my own bungalow at the CBS lot to record The Rich List in the most massive studio. Whether The Rich List ever would turn out to be a massive success or not doesn't matter. Just the fact was that I was able to sit there and say, how did this happen? You could say, the harder you practice, the luckier you get, and I'm a bit of a believer in that. But I am also a believer in fate and somebody predestining what's going to happen for you. And I just am very, very fortunate and very, very lucky. There's not a day goes by that I don't thank God for, the good luck that has befallen me. It's hard work, but it's been an amazing ride and amazing experience.
I've got to ask you about your time in America. How does it differ to here? It seems to me they take everything far more seriously because it's much bigger and there's far more money invested. Is it really that you're treated to limos and 5-star hotels and treated like gold dust?
I was treated to those things, but I was made to work harder than I have ever worked in any studio in Britain. And believe me, you're made to work hard in Britain as well, but this was really, really hard. And I think also, no matter whether you're a teacher, no matter where you work in the bank, no matter what your job is, new working practices come in, and these practices actually emanate from America. They always do, and it's always about squeezing us all more till the pips squeak. And so there's no doubt about it that those working practices are different. But it's like anything in broadcasting. I believe usually if you can do the job locally, you can do it regionally. If you can do it regionally, you can do it nationally. If you can do it nationally, you can do it in America. That's my view.
Did you get a chance to do any of the big chat shows or any of the big American shows?
Well, because of work commitments here, I was asked to go out and do Jay Leno, but I couldn't take the 3 days off. I mean, there were, various people at 5 Live or at Sky were very good about letting me off my commitments, but you just can't push it too much. What I have done a lot of time in studios, where I talk to American breakfast hosts and things, doing different shows, and you do that down the line. So I can be in London and they are in lots of places, Chicago, Washington, New York, Salt Lake City, and then you do all the radio stations as well talking about the show. So it's difficult. And I remember that the name does give them difficulty. I thought they would have difficulty understanding me in America, but it was me actually understanding them. That was the biggest problem. The only problem I do have is with the name Eamonn, and as I say in my book, I was named after Eamonn Andrews, maybe the most famous presenter of This Is Your Life, and that's the one job funny I haven't got. I would have thought that destiny, if that had come round, and I would have done that. But I met David Bowie's wife once, Eamonn. And she was a surly looking woman. She came into the studio surrounded by bodyguards, and she's 9'2" Somalian model. I mean, she's a formidable looking woman. And I was sitting at GMTV presenting with Fiona, and Fiona said, "Oh, I don't like the look of her. She looks a bit annoyed." And I said, "Leave it to me." And I crossed the floor during a commercial break, and I said, "Hello, Eamonn." Introducing myself. "Hello, Eamonn." And she went, "Eamonn." And I went, no, Eamonn. And she went, Eamonn. And I went, no, it's like a cow, a moo. And she said, Eamonn. And I went, well, no, it's like a prayer, amen. And she said, why can you not say my name? My name is Eamonn, why can't you say it? I said, I know what your name is, I'm just trying to tell you mine. So it was a complete crossword, complete mix-up there. So it is difficult. Some people spell it with one N, some people spell it, it's the way you get it. But there is only one of me on the telly, so that's good.
I think if you asked anybody, what's the first thing that springs to mind when you mention Eamonn Holmes? I think it would be your sense of humour, not the fact that you're a journalist or a TV presenter. Does that bother you? I think everybody thinks that you're a really nice guy. I don't think they necessarily think of you as a great journalist.
I don't think of myself as a great journalist either. What I think of myself is probably a very capable broadcaster, but I know that I'm a better journalist than a lot of people are, and you have to know, even if you're doing quiz shows, I'm working as a journalist. I've never not worked as a journalist, because you're writing questions, you're writing scripts, you're delivering scripts in a different way. And I have absolutely no snobbery about that. It doesn't annoy me. I've never won an award in my life, nor do I expect to. But when people sit and analyse TV, you know what? There are only 2 types of TV. Good TV and bad TV. That's it. And as long as I can be involved in good TV and contribute to that, I am more than happy. The thing about being loved is nice of you to say so. I hope that is true. That's an indefinable thing. You can be the best broadcaster in the world. You can be, where TV companies make the mistake is they pick best looking people, the thinnest people, the people who, are just the gorgeous people. But actually, what you have to really like, and it's not to decide, but the viewing and listening public, is whether you're likable or not. That is the indefinable thing, and that comes from your audience. There's very little you can do about that. Gosh, this is an industry full of false people. I mean, if only you knew the people who go out there and say, I'm a really lovely person, I am. Oh, me, I'm dead ordinary. These are usually the people who aren't, so it's not for me to say, I'm dead ordinary, I do this or I do that. What I tend to do is just shoot from the hip, say it as it is. And, a lot of people don't like that. And, each to their own. But at the end of the day, it's the public. The public will decide. Look, they'll decide with me. We're doing this interview now and people are shouting at the radio, can't stand him, me. What's he saying? He's love, hate him, can't stand him. All you can hope is that more people like you than don't like you. That is all you can hope for at the end of the day. And if that is the case, and the broadcasters, when they do their audience research, find that out, then you're lucky and you can continue to work.
I think when that was brought home to me was when Bob Monkhouse died, and everybody said he was admired and respected, but he wasn't warm in the same way that Les Dawson was. People didn't hold him in their hearts in the same way.
And you know why that was? Because Bob Monkhouse was a consummate professional. He was an incredibly intelligent man, very, very, so an incredibly, fine operator, the best at what he did. But you see, that isn't the only quality that you need. It isn't. And as I say, it's for the public, it's for the audience. The audience decide really strange things, that just the broadcasters don't factor in as to why they take somebody to their hearts. And I think people can usually sniff a con. Usually, but not always.
He's also got a brand new DVD out called Eamonn Spells, and there was a story in The Sun. Please tell me it was a wind-up. They couldn't spell Eamonn Holmes.
Well, that wouldn't know. It actually was true. They issued it with that. But Eamonn is a difficult name to spell. And when I went to America, people say, Eamonn, and I'm saying it's just like a prayer, amen. And they got that. So they didn't spell that right, and 10,000 of these had to be recalled because it wasn't a very good advert for spell. But unless you can spot another one in there, folks, I don't think there is. So the reason I did the spelling interactive DVD for Christmas was that I presented a program called Hard Spell and Star Spell for the BBC, and there was a great reaction to that. It was absolutely amazing to see how there was a hunger, particularly amongst second generation immigrants, to have their families really educated, speaking the language, understanding the language. And of course there's the big spelling bee competitions in America, and if people's kids are anything like mine, they live in this text word language. And, my daughters and sons text me and it's all, see you later, CUL8R. And I'm trying to decide, what are they saying to me here? Would you, like WOD, would, and it really worries me. And I go and I say, please tell me that you don't write like this in school, or that you don't, that you can spell words. And they go, no, no. And I don't believe them. I actually think, no, your spelling is bound to decline. So the interesting thing about the interactive DVD Spell was that it's a chance for kids to prove to their parents, yes, we can spell. It's a chance for parents to show the kids, see, in our day, we had it drilled into us. We had to learn these off like this. It's easy enough to do, no matter who you are. It's just you take your remote control and your DVD and you're given options and you can play against each other. It's quite clever from that point of view. So it was very nice from that point of view, yeah.
Are you starstruck still? Do you still enjoy meeting people who are famous?
You've got to. I remember ages ago talking to Michael Parkinson, and I said, well, why don't you do the chat shows anymore? I'm going back to the early 90s. And he said, look, the biggest names I can get now are Jason Donovan and Kylie Minogue. I would like to get them now. I mean, Kylie's still going. He said, I've interviewed Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, Muhammad Ali, and now I'm getting Jason Donovan. But then they were just two 18-year-olds on Neighbours, and I totally understand what he meant by that. And you have to get. TV's different now. You don't actually do interviews normally, by and large, with people who are really interesting or people who you admire on TV. What you get is who the TV companies give you. So chat shows are all about today promoting and cross-promoting people who are on other shows on the station. So it can limit on a show like GMTV who you actually talk to that's genuinely interesting. And TV is ageist. They ban people over a certain age from talking, he's too old, she's too old, because advertisers rule the roost. Advertisers want the young buck. They don't want old people on there, which is terrible. And it really, really annoys me, this, because magazine programs in general on television, they are watched by people like my mum and my aunt and whatever, and these are the people that are sort of scoffed at and not regarded as being seriously. And as my mum says, those shows are all right, but there's far too much dirty talk on them. What she means. Everything's mucky, isn't it? All the debate shows, all this, I've had sex with my girlfriend's brother, oh goodness sake, and we're doing a DNA test to find out if, and I mean, it's different. It certainly is different. But yes, am I starstruck? Yes, I'm most of all starstruck, I suppose, by people you see on movies, because then you're really famous, aren't you? And if you're American on top of that, then even better. But it's fantastic to meet sports stars. It's fantastic to do people who've achieved things in life. And the people that fascinate me are the people who make scientific advancements, in DNA and medical matters, and architects, people who design things. I'm actually probably just quite a nosy person, and if you are nosy, it really does help when you talk to people. There's some magnificent people, and usually the longer you've been around, the more interesting you are. It is very, very difficult, believe me, to talk to a 17-year-old from a soap. It is a difficult thing. It is a difficult thing, because outside, did you do your exams, and what did you do? Were you going to stay on at school, and tell me about the character, and will she marry Jimmy at the end of all this? It's difficult. It's difficult for them as well, but that's what it's all about.
I was asked if I'd like to do Chantel from Big Brother yesterday, and I do 35-minute interviews in an hour program.
Yeah.
And I'd got through the first 30 seconds of what I would ask her, and then I was stuck. So I said, no. I mean, what can you ask someone who's just done one thing?
But you see, I think Chantel is, whether she's lived a life or not, and she, bear in mind she's bringing out her autobiography, she's a very likeable girl. I think that's the thing as well. Why she did win, didn't she? She won. Did you win, brother? She's a likeable girl, and she's teamed up with Preston, and he's a likeable guy. And that's the thing we were talking about earlier, that whether they've lived or not, people think, no, they're likeable. And the other cult at the minute, of course, with Jade and Jordan and Chantel, is that so many folk look at them and they say, well, look, if they could do it, I can do it as well. And I think it's admirable in a way, but don't so much of what they've done is dependent on luck. You've got to get it into your kids that if you work hard and you achieve and you do certain things, then you should be rewarded. And it's just a pity today's sort of showbiz society doesn't seem to honour and reward that sort of outlook.
Very quickly, just to wrap up, GMTV. Let's just talk about the GMTV years. It was the thing that made you and made everybody love you, as I said earlier. It wasn't very pleasant for you, though. That's the feeling I get through the entire period there. Almost from day one, they were kind of changing things and making your job incredibly difficult.
Well, it's a great programme, great station, lousy management. A lot of people full of petty jealousies, and it's the only place I've known it is quite unique. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You can take lots of other people. There's usually a through flow with management and new ideas. And in the 12 years, 31, maybe 14 years GMTV's been on the go, they don't change anybody, and that's part of the problem there. And it's just a very strange setup, very strange dynamics, very strange situation where your co-presenter's husband's made your editor. Those people make those decisions, and it was time to go time for me. It was time to go time for them. I don't think they'll have any tears about me going, and I certainly don't have any tears leaving them. What I do worry about, I think the public are shortchanged, because I do think Fiona and I were a very, very good pairing. It's just that the petty jealousies meant that nobody was going to accept that. But, ask me, do I take delight that their ratings have gone down the toilet since I've left? Do I, heck?
One of my favourite parts in the book where I did laugh out loud was where you talked about how you'd done a 10-minute interview on gambling addiction, and then you went straight into a piece where you called for £1 a minute to win a competition.
Well, look, the competition's everything for them. The phone-in lines are absolutely everything for them. It's about generating the money. It's not about the items. The ad breaks and the competitions are longer than the items. We worked out one day that in every hour, you probably only talk something like 9 minutes in every hour. You do 9 minutes worth of interviews in every hour, and the rest of it is sponsored items. And that's sad. Hopefully you get an audience that's discerning enough to see through that. But, that's the penalty you pay with too many television stations about. There are far too many TV stations. There's far too much competition. Does more mean better? Not necessarily.